I still remember the day of the inheritance announcement like it was yesterday. The family gathering in our living room, the anxious anticipation, the belief that my parents would be fair. My sister Danielle sat smugly on the leather sofa, manicured nails tapping impatiently. Then came the bombshell. A luxury waterfront villa for her, an empty downtown parking lot for me. Their laughter still echoes in my mind. "You can always sleep under the stars," they snickered. Before I dive into how my own family betrayed me, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, you will want to see how I turned their mockery into my greatest victory. Growing up in our affluent Boston suburb, the stark contrast between how my parents treated Danielle and me was impossible to ignore. Our sprawling colonial home with its manicured lawn served as the backdrop for a childhood where I learned early that effort and achievement meant little compared to being the favorite child. My father, Jonathan, had built his fortune in real estate development, turning modest properties into luxury spaces across New England. My mother, Susan, embraced her role as a socialite, hosting charity galas and sitting on prestigious boards while barely concealing her preference for my sister. From elementary school onward, I showed a natural inclination toward entrepreneurship. At 12, I started mowing lawns in our neighborhood, saving every dollar. By 16, I had expanded into computer repair, fixing devices for classmates and their parents. Each new venture was met with dismissal from my parents. Dad would wave his hand saying, "This hobby is cute, but real success comes from thinking bigger." Mom would simply redirect conversations to Danielle and her latest accomplishment, which usually involved being invited to an exclusive social event. Meanwhile, Danielle barely maintained a B average, but was rewarded with shopping sprees for every passing grade. When college applications rolled around, my sister was packed off to an Ivy League school despite her mediocre academic performance. A substantial donation from our parents ensured her acceptance. I opted for a state university with a strong business program, working part-time throughout my 4 years to minimize student loans. My graduation with honors received a perfunctory dinner celebration, while Danielle, dropping out of her master's program to find herself, was somehow positioned as a bold, admirable choice. Throughout our 20s, the pattern continued. Danielle flitted between careers, from interior design to personal shopping to lifestyle blogging, each new direction funded generously by our parents. I built a modest but growing consulting business, helping small companies optimize their operations. Every family gathering became an exercise in patience, as my accomplishments were glossed over, while Danielle was praised for simply existing. Then came the announcement that would change everything. My parents, now in their 60s, decided they were ready to retire and distribute portions of their estate while still alive to witness our enjoyment of our inheritance. This was presented as a magnanimous act, allowing them to avoid inheritance taxes, while bestowing their hard-earned wealth on their beloved children. The family was summoned to the wood-paneled study for what Dad termed the formal declaration of assets. That fateful Sunday afternoon, I arrived punctually at 3 o'clock, dressed in a button-down shirt and slacks, expecting at minimum a fair division of assets. Danielle sauntered in 30 minutes late, draped in designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her diamond earrings caught the light as she kissed our parents before dramatically dropping onto the leather Chesterfield sofa. Dad stood before the antique desk, looking every bit the successful patriarch in his tailored suit. Mom perched beside him, pearls gleaming a serene smile on her surgically preserved face. My father cleared his throat, dramatically savoring his moment of power. "After 40 years of hard work and smart investments, your mother and I have decided it is time to pass on the fruits of our labor," he began, voice swelling with self-importance. "We have carefully considered what would benefit each of you most based on your unique personalities and capabilities." Danielle straightened her expression, expectant. I maintained a neutral expression, though my pulse quickened with a mixture of hope and apprehension. "For our darling daughter," Dad continued, eyes softening as they always did when addressing Danielle, "we are transferring ownership of our Nantucket summer property. The 6-bedroom waterfront villa, fully furnished, along with an investment portfolio valued at approximately $2 million. This will provide you with both security and the lifestyle you deserve." Danielle squealed, leaping up to embrace our parents. "A villa, and investments. Oh my God, thank you, thank you." I sat motionless, waiting for my portion to be announced. The seconds stretched into uncomfortable minutes as the three of them celebrated. Finally, I cleared my throat. "And for me?" I asked quietly. Dad turned as if suddenly remembering my presence. There was something in his expression, a mixture of dismissal and what almost seemed like amusement. "Ah, yes," he said, reaching for an envelope on the desk. For our son, who has always displayed such practical business sense, he extended the envelope toward me with noticeably less enthusiasm than he had shown with Danielle. I took it, fingers slightly trembling, and pulled out a single sheet of paper. A property deed. To a downtown parking lot. I blinked, certain I had misunderstood. A parking lot, as in an empty piece of asphalt. My mother gave a tinkling laugh. "It is in an up-and-coming area, dear. With your supposed business acumen, perhaps you can make something of it?" Danielle peered over my shoulder at the deed, a look of mock sympathy crossing her face. "Wow, brother. That is special." Dad actually chuckled, clapping me on the shoulder. "You can always sleep under the stars. Think of it as motivation to finally make something substantial of yourself." The three of them erupted into laughter, clearly considering this enormously funny. I sat frozen, the paper clutched in my hand, the inequity of it all washing over me in waves. A multi-million-dollar villa and investment portfolio versus an empty parking lot, worth perhaps 1/100th of that value. "Maybe you can finally learn the value of prime real estate," Mom added, dabbing at her eyes, tearful from laughter. "Your father started with much less after all." Danielle reached over to pat my hand in a gesture of fake consolation, her eyes glittering with satisfaction. "Do not worry," she said sweetly. "If you need a job, I might need a gardener for the villa grounds." In that moment, I wanted to scream, to upend the antique desk, to demand an explanation for a lifetime of favoritism, culminating in this final insult. Instead, I carefully refolded the deed, placed it back in its envelope, and rose to my feet. "Thank you for the opportunity," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "If you will excuse me, I should go see my property." As I walked out, their laughter followed me, cutting deeper than any knife could have. The weight of decades of dismissal and disregard pressed down on me, threatening to crush my spirit entirely. But somewhere beneath the hurt, a small spark of defiance ignited. This would not be the end of my story. The midday sun beat down as I pulled up to my inheritance, the car tires crunching over scattered gravel. The downtown parking lot was exactly what you would expect. A rectangular patch of cracked asphalt with faded white lines marking about 40 spaces. A broken payment machine tilted at an awkward angle near the entrance, its digital display long dead. Chain-link fencing surrounded 3 sides with a narrow alley running along the back. I parked in the empty lot, cut the engine, and sat in silence. For the first time since leaving my parents' home, I allowed the emotions to surface. The betrayal ran deep, not just because of the disparity in value between Danielle and my inheritance, but because of what it symbolized. A lifetime of being the responsible one, the hard-working one, the one who never asked for handouts, culminating in this final insult. Hot tears stung my eyes as memories flooded back. Danielle crying her way out of consequences when she crashed the family car at 16, while I saved for 3 years to buy my first used vehicle. Danielle getting bailed out of credit card debt in college while I worked night shifts to pay my own way. The endless parade of gifts, trips, and second chances she received while I was told to stand on my own 2 feet. The unfairness of it all hit me with physical force. I slammed my palm against the steering wheel again and again, finally allowing myself to feel the rage and hurt that had been building for decades. I shouted into the empty car, releasing the words I had swallowed in my parents' study. My phone rang, interrupting my breakdown. "Danielle, of course." I considered ignoring it, but something compelled me to answer. "Can you believe how incredible this villa is?" she gushed without preamble. "I am already talking to an interior designer about updates. The master suite alone is bigger than your entire apartment." I said nothing, listening to her ramble about ocean views and the yacht club membership that came with the property. "So how is your parking lot?" she finally asked, barely containing her amusement. "Maybe you could live in your car there. That would save on rent." I could picture her perfectly lounging on designer furniture, enjoying my humiliation. This was the lowest point, hearing her gleeful reaction to my disappointment. "Actually, I am looking at it right now. It has potential," I lied, surprising myself with the calm in my voice. Her laugh was sharp. "Sure it does. Listen, I was serious about the gardener position. The grounds are extensive and I know you need the money. After ending the call, I sat in my car as the sun began to set, watching shadows lengthen across the empty lot. This was rock bottom, the culmination of a lifetime of being treated as less than. But sitting there with nothing left to lose, something unexpected began to stir within me. Not just anger, but determination. If this worthless piece of asphalt was all they thought I deserved, then I would prove them wrong in the most spectacular way possible. That night, sleep evaded me as my mind raced. I hunched over my laptop until the early hours researching property values in the downtown district. What initially seemed like useless information began to form a pattern. The city had recently approved a revitalization plan for this exact neighborhood. New apartments were being developed 3 blocks away. The nearby university was expanding its urban campus. Foot traffic in the area was projected to increase by 40% over the next 2 years. By sunrise, I had the beginnings of an idea. I called Marcus, a friend from college who now worked in the city planning office. "That lot you are asking about is in the new mixed-use development zone," he confirmed after checking the records. The city is actually incentivizing businesses that bring life to underutilized spaces like that. You could potentially qualify for tax breaks if you create something that serves the community. A quick coffee meeting turned into a 3-hour brainstorming session. Marcus showed me proposals from similar cities, where empty lots had been transformed into vibrant community spaces. "Food trucks are booming right now," he mentioned casually. "Downtown workers are always complaining about limited lunch options, and restaurants are expensive to start. If you provided infrastructure for multiple vendors, you could generate steady income without the overhead of a full restaurant." The idea took root immediately. I spent the next week developing calculations, creating projected revenue streams from rentable spaces, utilities, fees, and potential customer flow. The numbers were modest but promising. With minimal investment, the lot could generate sustainable income within 6 months. Armed with a preliminary business plan, I approached several banks for a small business loan. The rejections came quickly from the first 4 institutions. An empty parking lot converted to food truck space. Too risky, one loan officer dismissed. I almost gave up before meeting with Alicia at a local credit union. She reviewed my plans with genuine interest. "This neighborhood is changing fast," she agreed. "And the overhead is relatively low compared to building construction. I think we can make something work." The loan she offered was smaller than requested, but enough to begin. That night I spread papers across my apartment floor, developing a detailed business plan that accounted for every dollar. The emotional pain remained, but alongside it grew something stronger: resolve. My parents and Danielle might see me as a failure, but I would transform their insult into my greatest achievement. The transformation of the parking lot took 6 grueling months of nonstop work. Each morning I arrived before sunrise, tackling different aspects of the conversion. The first month focused on basics: resurfacing the cracked asphalt, installing proper drainage, and upgrading the electrical systems to support multiple food trucks. Every penny of the loan was carefully allocated, with nothing to waste on luxuries. I negotiated with contractors, often trading services for future considerations. The electrician got 6 months of free lunch once we opened. The concrete specialist received prominent advertising space. When funds ran low, I learned to do tasks myself, watching online tutorials late into the night before attempting plumbing repairs or painting. By the 3rd month, the space began taking shape. The perimeter now featured wooden planters, built from reclaimed materials filled with hardy shrubs and seasonal flowers. Overhead string lights crisscrossed the lot, creating a warm, inviting atmosphere for evening hours. In one corner, I constructed a small, covered pavilion with picnic tables and charging stations for customers. The name came to me during a rare moment of rest, staring up at the night sky from the half-finished lot. Starview Food Park. A deliberate reference to my father saying I could always sleep under the stars. What had been meant as an insult became the inspiration for the brand. The logo, a simple star with utensils forming points, went up on a restored vintage sign at the entrance. Recruiting vendors proved challenging initially. I visited every food truck in the city, pitching my vision of a central, well-equipped location with guaranteed foot traffic. Many were skeptical, but 4 pioneers took a chance, attracted by the reduced first-month rent and built-in utilities. A Korean fusion truck, An artisanal grilled cheese vendor, a craft coffee cart, and a gourmet taco operation formed our opening lineup. Marketing consisted primarily of grassroots efforts. I distributed flyers throughout downtown office buildings, created social media accounts, and invited local food bloggers for preview tastings. A friendship with the university newspaper editor resulted in a feature article about urban space revitalization, prominently featuring Starview as an example of creative repurposing. The grand opening exceeded all expectations. Lines formed at each truck stretching onto the sidewalk. Office workers mingled with university students and curious locals, the picnic tables filled with people enjoying their discoveries. By sunset, every vendor had sold out completely, and my phone buzzed constantly with messages from other food trucks wanting to secure a spot. Over the next year, Starview Food Park evolved from a risky venture into a thriving business. We expanded to 10 regular vendors with rotating guest spots for pop-ups and special events. Weekend markets featuring local artists and craftspeople brought additional revenue and community engagement. The once empty lot buzzed with activity from breakfast through late evening 7 days a week. Local businesses began to take notice of the increased foot traffic we brought to the neighborhood. The previously struggling bookstore across the street reported a 30% increase in sales. A boutique clothing shop opened in a formerly vacant storefront nearby. The city planner featured Starview in presentations about successful urban renewal projects. I reinvested every penny of profit, gradually expanding the amenities. A small stage for acoustic musicians, weather protection canopies for rainy days, an Instagram-worthy mural along the back wall painted by a local artist. I even constructed a modest office and apartment space above the restroom facilities, moving in to save rent and maintain an on-site presence. The business consumed my life but brought unexpected satisfaction. Unlike the hollow achievements that never earned my parents' approval building, Starview provided tangible results. Every positive review, every vendor success story, every community event reinforced that I was creating something meaningful from what was meant to be humiliation. Then came the day I spotted them standing uncertainly at the entrance during the busy lunch rush. My parents and Danielle looking both out of place and annoyingly entitled as they surveyed what I had built. For a moment, I considered pretending not to see them, but several customers had already recognized me and were watching with interest. "Welcome to Starview," I said evenly, approaching them with professional composure. "What brings you here today?" My mother recovered first air kissing near my cheek. "We were in the area for shopping and heard about this charming little place. We had no idea it was your parking lot." She glanced around poorly, concealing her surprise at the transformation. The once empty asphalt now teemed with life. Strings of lights swayed gently overhead. The scent of diverse cuisines filled the air. A local musician strummed guitar on the small stage while customers lounged in colorful Adirondack chairs. "This is quite something," my father admitted grudgingly. "Quite the little operation you have going here." Danielle eyed the crowd of young professionals and stylishly dressed students. There was something new in her expression: envy. I gave them the standard tour, explaining the business model, while accepting greetings from regular customers and vendors who had come to know me well. The respect in these interactions was obvious, creating a stark contrast to how my family had always treated me. The Korean fusion truck owner waved us over, insisting on preparing his signature dishes for my unexpected guests. "You must be so proud of your son," he told my parents as he worked. "This place has changed the whole neighborhood." My business has tripled since joining Starview. My parents exchanged glances but said nothing. We settled at a reserved table, the awkwardness palpable as they picked at their food with silver forks I had provided specially for their visit. After stilted small talk about distant relatives and neighborhood gossip, my father finally revealed the true purpose of their appearance. "Your mother and I have been discussing your enterprise," he began in the tone he reserved for business negotiations. "We always knew this lot had potential, of course. That is why we selected it for you." I nearly choked on my water. The audacity was breathtaking. "We think it is time to formalize this operation as a proper family business," he continued. "We are prepared to invest $50,000 for a 60% ownership stake. With our connections and business experience, we could really take this concept to the next level. Perhaps franchise it across the region." Danielle nodded enthusiastically. "I could manage the marketing and social media presence. The villa has been featured in several design magazines already." I have quite the following. The pieces suddenly fell into place. Through mutual acquaintances, I had heard rumors of investment properties underperforming. Danielle had posted increasingly desperate attempts at monetizing her lifestyle brand. They were not here to reconcile or apologize. They were here because they needed money. Let me understand this correctly, I said, setting down my fork carefully. For 30 years, you made it clear I was less valued than Danielle. You gave her a multi-million-dollar property while laughing in my face about this worthless lot. You told me to sleep under the stars as a joke. Now that I have built something successful despite your cruelty, you want to swoop in and claim majority ownership with a token investment. My father straightened, affronted by my directness. We are offering you legitimacy and expansion opportunities. This is still just a parking lot with some food trucks. With our backing, I cut him off something I had never dared do before. This parking lot now generates 6 figures annually, with projections to double that next year. I own it outright, have zero debt, and maintain a waiting list of vendors eager to secure a spot. What exactly do you think your legitimacy brings to the table? The conversation devolved quickly. Years of suppressed feelings erupted as I finally confronted them about the disparity in how Danielle and I had been treated. My mother grew teary, claiming they had only wanted to motivate me to succeed on my own. My father blustered about ungrateful children and family loyalty. Danielle oscillated between smugness and alarm as she realized her golden child status might not translate to financial support forever. When my father threatened to disown me completely if I refused their generous offer, I actually laughed. What exactly would I be losing? Another empty parking lot? They left in a huff, my mother calling back dramatically that I should contact them when I was ready to be reasonable. I watched them go, feeling strangely liberated. For the first time, I had stood my ground and refused to accept their terms. The parking lot they had given me as an insult had become both my salvation and my declaration of independence. The weeks following my family confrontation passed in radio silence. No calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive emails. At first, the quiet felt unsettling after a lifetime of trying to earn their approval. But gradually, I recognized the silence for what it truly was: freedom. Starview continued to flourish beyond my initial projections. By reinvesting profits strategically, I acquired the narrow alley behind the lot, expanding our footprint by nearly 30%. The additional space allowed for a dedicated dessert section featuring rotating sweet treat vendors that quickly developed a cult following on social media. With business thriving, I found myself in position to purchase a small abandoned warehouse across the street. After modest renovations, it became Starview Incubator, an affordable commercial kitchen space where food entrepreneurs could develop products without the overwhelming startup costs of a traditional restaurant. The program particularly focused on immigrant chefs and those from underprivileged backgrounds who had exceptional culinary skills but limited access to capital. My relationship with the vendors evolved from strictly business to something resembling family. We celebrated birthdays together, supported each other through personal challenges, and collaborated on community initiatives. When Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico, our collective fundraising efforts provided emergency supplies to the hometown of our pastry chef. During the holiday season, we organized a free meal program for homeless individuals in the neighborhood. These connections filled a void I had never fully acknowledged. While growing up seeking validation from parents who were incapable of providing it, I had missed the opportunity to build a community based on mutual respect and genuine caring. The vendors, customers, and neighborhood residents who gathered daily at Starview offered something my biological family never had: acceptance without conditions. 4 months after the confrontation, an unexpected letter arrived from my mother. The carefully worded note requested a meeting at a neutral location, a coffee shop halfway between her home and my business. After considerable thought, I agreed. She arrived precisely on time, looking older and less polished than I remembered. We exchanged awkward greetings before settling into an uncomfortable silence. "Your father does not know I am here," she finally admitted, turning her coffee cup in small circles. "The last few months have given me time to reflect on some things." What followed was not exactly an apology, but perhaps as close as she could manage. She acknowledged the favoritism shown to Danielle had been unfair. There were vague references to her own upbringing and patterns she had unknowingly perpetuated. She mentioned family therapy as a possibility, something my father was resistant to, but might eventually consider. I listened without interrupting, neither accepting nor rejecting her olive branch. When she finished, I shared some basic updates about Starview, keeping the conversation on neutral ground. We parted with a tentative plan to meet again the following month, both recognizing that healing, if possible at all, would be a gradual process, measured in small steps, rather than dramatic reconciliations. Danielle reached out next, her approach more transparent. Her attempt to monetize the villa as a luxury vacation rental had failed to generate the expected income. Maintenance costs were higher than anticipated. She proposed featuring Starview on her lifestyle blog, an arrangement clearly designed more for her benefit than mine. I declined the cross-promotion, but offered something else: mentorship in developing a sustainable business plan. To my surprise, she accepted. Our weekly video calls remained somewhat tense old dynamics, threatening to resurface. But there were moments of genuine connection as she began to appreciate the work ethic she had previously mocked. By the 1-year anniversary of Starview, the business had exceeded even my most optimistic projections. What began as an empty parking lot now employed 15 people, supported over 20 independent food businesses, and had become a catalyst for neighborhood revitalization. Local news featured our anniversary celebration, describing Starview as the crown jewel of downtown renewal. My father attended the event, arriving late and standing awkwardly at the perimeter. We exchanged stiff nods across the crowd. It was not reconciliation, but perhaps acknowledgement. For now, that was enough. As I stood on the small stage that evening, thanking the community that had embraced my vision, I reflected on the journey. The parking lot, intended as an insult, had become the foundation for something meaningful. The cruel suggestion to sleep under the stars had inspired a gathering place where hundreds now enjoyed those same stars together. Success did not erase the pain of years of rejection, but it provided perspective. I no longer needed their approval to validate my worth. The greatest revenge against those who underestimate you is not proving them wrong, but living well, regardless of their opinion. Have you ever had someone try to tear you down only to find their actions pushed you towards something better? I would love to hear your stories in the comments. If this journey of turning rejection into opportunity resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to join me for more real-life experiences. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that sometimes what seems like our worst moment can become our greatest opportunity. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. Remember, the stars are not just for sleeping under, they are for reaching toward.